outside my window, I had an ET. At the end of my bed, there was 3 of them, and 1 on the side of my bed and 1 in the closet. They never did anything to me, they just looked at me, but I was paralyzed.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our show. Today, we have our guest. Her name is Dana Knoetgen. She is the host of her podcast, Light Talk with Dana. She has had an ET contact that she's here to share her experience with us. Dana, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, thank you for having me, I appreciate this. Yeah,
Absolutely. It's
um
a pleasure having you today.
yeah, I am happy to explain my, story of the ETs. This
Hmm.
happened, several years ago. I was very young at the time. I was,
Hmm.
living on my own for the first time, and as a young female, I always had the phone next to me at night so that in case I needed to call for any reason, I had it right there.
Okay.
Well, one summer night, I was laying in bed and I happened to hear a cat outside. And then I started hearing what to me sounded like at the moment was firecrackers in the large trash cans that the apartments had. And to let you know, I was on the 3rd floor. So there's a flat wall, 3rd floor, no way anybody could get there. And after the fireworks, what I thought was in the trash cans, I some reason opened my eyes and outside my window I had an ET. At the end of my bed, there was 3 of them, and 1 on the side of my bed and 1 in the closet. They never did anything to me, they just looked at me, but I was paralyzed. I remember laying there and trying to move my arm so that I can reach the phone to call. What only came to my mind was to call my mom, so I'm screaming out in my head, call mom," and my mom was, like, 30 minutes away. She was not gonna be able to get there. Even if she did, what was she gonna do, right? But I kept calling out, and that was pretty much it. Then many years later, I am in my current home, and I had the feeling of one at the end of my bed, and this again was at night. So I woke up and nothing was there and it disappeared. The energy left. But I did feel it like looking at me, so I knew it was watching me for whatever reason. A few nights later, the same thing happened. I had this feeling something was there watching my husband this time, but when I opened my eyes, it was gone. I never saw it, no nothing. The 3rd time, I was in the shower and I had this feeling of energy behind me. So when I turned around, it wasn't at I didn't look at the height of my husband. I looked at the height of this being as being around the 3-foot level. And still not scared of him, just kind of freaked out, something weird in my room. But then I saw this shadow in my room, and that's when I said, "Okay, it is time to smudge." So at this point, I went around, smudged my whole house, and then what possibly could have been gunshots in the apartment, because it wasn't in the best of neighborhood, and it was protecting me and my family here in this current home from the negative entity that was lurking around. So that one there, I was very happy that they were here to protect me. Not sure if this is gonna be something that's gonna be related to it, but prior to the ETs coming, I had some missing times. lived about 30 miles away from my job, and I worked night shifts, so I had to be at work at 1 or 2 in the morning. And so when I left my house, I remember locking the house, and then I don't remember turning around. I don't remember walking out to the street to get into my car. I don't remember driving the 30 miles with multiple turns to get to work. I don't remember getting to work and parking my car or walking into the building. I don't remember punching in. I don't remember our morning meetings that we usually had. But then I do remember standing there talking with all the guys, and that was didn't even think nothing of it until later, and I started having these times when I'm driving where I would block out, and I always thought it was just that I've fallen asleep at the wheel, which was very scary. I don't suggest doing that. One time I was going from work to school, I was going to college at the time, and again, I fell asleep, and I went to get off at the wrong exit and went back into my lane in enough time. It was completely dangerous. So then I looked in my rearview mirror and behind me was a cop. So whoever was driving, whether I was driving in my sleep or someone had taken over my driving wherever I was at that point, did a good job because I don't recall having any tickets on me. Far as I know, there's not a record out there looking for me, so it must have been okay.
Yeah, that's
Um,
important.
yeah, so hopefully nothing is really out there, but yeah, I had many times where I've fallen asleep, what I think I have. Maybe I did on some of them, maybe I didn't. Um, but now I kinda wonder if some of those that I had been taken, and I don't know if it would be the same beings that was in my room. I'm not quite sure. I don't know who they were. I'm still trying to find
Mhm.
out exactly who was in my room. The only thing that has come close to looking like the ones in my room were the grays, and that's the only thing I've come up with yet to this point. So that
Claro.
was really my basis of my ET experience.
Well, thank you so much, Dana, for sharing with us. Go ahead.
Oh, no, no problem. You're welcome. Actually have had an experience driving to work in my current job, and I have again, I'm driving in the night to get to work, and I look out north and I see these lights flashing. They were pretty bright lights, and they were flashing almost how some of these newer cars, they have the flash for their
Mhm.
signals where it just flashes across the car? But that's what this was like, but they were bright white lights, and they went from the east to the west, and just 5 flashes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and just that fast across the sky. They would probably went a good maybe 10 miles within those flashes. I think there was something more to it. I can't think of anything that it could have been. It couldn't be streetlights because it was too high in the sky and too far away. Because that was, like, close to 10 miles away from me,
Uh-huh.
and I do work right next to an airport where the airport light that spins, it could have been that, but when I looked at that airport light spun from west to east, but these lights went east to west. So it couldn't have been that, and it couldn't be the radio station that's over there because those lights are red and their lights are up like this. These was just like a flashlight. It was almost like a large flashlight that was just going across the sky. I can't think of anything else that it could be.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Dana, thank you so much for sharing that story with us. Because not a lot of people, at least to my knowledge, come forward when they have this type of experiences because they may be afraid of people are going to think that I'm crazy. As it is, a lot of people, at least 5, 10 years ago, they were afraid of coming out and say, this is what's going on, because they were afraid of people saying, oh yeah, you're ready for this type of hospital, or here's a pill for that. So thank you so much for being so brave in sharing your story with the world. It's definitely needed. Now, I wanted to go back to your life before this experience. What was going on at that time? Did you believe in aliens? Did you have any type of religious background? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. I grew up in a non-religious household. I did have a grandma that liked to get us to go to church. So we did go to church a few times, but I've always believed that there was a God, and but my parents weren't into the church setting.
Mhm,
So I had nothing like that, but I had a few experiences within that. When I was 6, I had an experience with seeing little kid faces coming out of trash cans at my grandma's house. And I also saw like a large footprint that us kids were all looking at, and we're all arguing. I'm like, no, that's too big to be dad's foot, and all of this. After that, I had nothing going on until I started working. And then I just started having all these experiences and still not sure what it was. I'm just, okay, it happened. It's like a
mhm,
dream. I didn't know fully what happened. And then just a few years ago, I met this guy at work, and a psychic, and he got me to understand what I was seeing and what I was experiencing was a true thing. I mean, this stuff is happening. And after that, it's like, you know what? This is my story. I'm going to stick with it. And it's, if you could believe me or not, this is my truth. And this is what I'm going to say. I haven't been too nervous of telling anybody.
mhm.
It's just, here I am.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And talking about telling people around you, your loved ones, your friends, your family, about this experience in particular with the ET contact, what was the reaction? Do you recall how they felt, what they said? How did they take that?
Honestly, most of my family have not heard it yet. I've got one sister that I have talked to about it, and she believes, and she's in the spiritual realm with me, so she gets it. I don't think I've even told anybody else in my family about it. Yeah, so I don't know what they would say. My dad would probably say, "You're losing it, Dana. You're crazy," in his own little, curiosity kind of way. I think he's a
Yeah.
little curious, but he's like, "No, you're crazy." Um, my oldest sister, I think she's like, "Yeah, you're messed up." My brother is
And
kind
that is
of on the
okay.
fence.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, and it's fine. I think she's more spiritual than she thinks. It's her will. And my brother, he is kind of on the fence. He's like, "Yeah, I've had things happen to me, and yet I don't believe it." So,
Mm,
yeah, he's had several things go on with him. In fact, he was able to watch my mom when she was pulled off life support. He was in the room, and he got to see her cross over.
like a shared death experience?
No, he was in the room, and he had this field to look up in the corner of the room, and when he did, he got to see the sparkly tunnel, and he
Mhm.
saw my mom walking up through the tunnel, and she turned around and says, "It's gonna be okay. I'm all good. It's all good." And then she
What a way
turned
to
around,
depart.
and I know. I was,
What a
like, so
gift.
jealous. I know. I know. I was like, "Oh, you're so lucky to have that, and I'm so jealous I didn't get that." But it was something just for him, and I know
Mhm.
having that experience is gonna help him get through the rest of our lives
Yeah.
without,
I
yeah.
believe that I don't believe in coincidences anymore. I believe that things happen for a reason, and probably that's what he needed at that time. And
Yes.
you didn't experience that because you didn't need it at that time. Jealous, granted, that's
No.
very valid, but that's what he needed at that time.
Yes, and I
Mhm,
agree, and his son was even in the room. It was just the 2 of them in the room,
mhm,
and his son didn't get to see that, only him. So I
I
know
see.
this was something he needed to see to deal with
Mhm,
the situation.
for sure.
So,
Now, Dana,
yeah.
I wanted to go back to your experience, your ET contact.
Sure.
Coming back from that experience, did you notice anything different with you? Any different abilities that you maybe didn't have before? Can you talk a little bit on that?
No, I was the same before and after, that I have
Mhm.
noticed. Nothing changed. Nothing that I recall changed. Just all the same. Yeah. I still
Okay.
had the same
What about
belief. I
your
still had the same room. Go ahead.
Mhm. Oh, no, I was gonna say your religious belief, but you just read my mind.
Oh, yeah, my belief, I've always believed in God, and I still believe that
Mhm,
there's a God, a source, or something out there. I think is transitioning over to a source. But
mhm.
I still believe there's a very high power out there that's helping everybody. So yeah, even with that, it it's changed some. 'Cause now I feel like I can relate to, I can connect with, I can speak with, instead of just, "Okay, I'm just gonna sit here and say some words, and we're gonna call it a prayer," you know? It's it's now it's, like, more in depth, it's more personal, it's more heart to heart now than it would be before.
Yeah, because 'cause you're not doing what you were taught to do. You were doing you're now doing something because you know it's true. There's a difference. You
Right.
feel that connection. Now, you also mentioned that you feel like you have missing time, especially when you were driving. And now that you mentioned that, I start like memories came back to me from when I was living in Texas. I had like a 45-minute commute to work. And there were times where I was driving and all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, did I pass this particular store already? How did I get here? It was completely erased of my mind. And to this day, I have not remember what happened during that time. Not recommended people, please don't do it. Don't do it on
Right?
purpose because it's not safe. It just happened. I was just driving, listening to music and blinked and I was like 10 miles ahead. And then I was like, wait, what happened here? No speeding tickets, no accidents, so we're okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I I personally have never had contact like with ETs other than in the dream state. I can vividly remember one time where I had and I knew it was not a dream because you can tell when something is a dream and what's a particular dream is not. So I can definitely relate to that. But I also wanted to talk about your podcast. You have a podcast in which you talk to people about paranormal experiences. What motivated you to create the podcast and share your story with the world?
That was spirits talking. I was standing in my living room and all of a sudden I heard podcast. And I knew enough at the time where it's like, okay, this is said to me, so this is something I should do. Even though I have faintest idea how to even start it, I barely even listen to podcasts. It's like I don't know anything about this and I'm still learning so much. So I checked into it, got some information and everything, and about a month later, here I am almost 2 years into it now.
Oh, that's
And
beautiful.
yes,
You're so much better than me.
it's
I got
it's hard, it's hard. I didn't think it would be this difficult. Well, it's not difficult. I mean, I'm having a blast doing this. It takes a lot of time,
Mhm.
to get your guests and to do everything. So here I am doing another full-time job after my full-time job, so
There you go.
like you, the family is taking a hit for it, but later on, this is gonna work out.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's important to listen to your intuition and your guidance. I got the message to open spirituality YouTube channel back in 2020, right before COVID. And I did open it, but I was like, what do I talk about? At that time, ET contacts and near death experiences and things of that nature were not in my radar. But I was like, okay, well, I open it, but what am I going to talk about? Am I just going to put meditations? So I did put meditations, but because I didn't know the YouTube game, that channel is closed. Fast forward to 2022. I was listening to another person who has a podcast about near death experience. And then the spirit guides were saying, you can do that too. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I am not going to put myself out there. I'm not ready to be on a camera. No, thank you. Thanks, but no thanks. And then I became literally addicted to that type of content. And I was like, wow, people are really, this is more common than what I thought. And they kept saying, you can do it, you can do it, you have to do it, you can, and they would not leave me alone. Then one day I said, fine, I'll do it. Fine. Just show me, teach me how to get the guests and I'll do it. And here we are. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
yes,
came to fight them back.
yeah. I fought back on other things, but this one here, I dove right in, and it's been I have met so many people with so many different experiences, and it's just a joy because when I started it, it was like, I wanna tell my stories to everybody because I've got a list of things that's happened to me now,
Mhm.
and I wanna tell my stories, and at the same time, I wanna hear everybody else's stories, I wanna hear about the NDEs, I wanna hear about the paranormal, I wanna hear about out of body experiences, I wanna hear about the cryptids, I wanna hear about everything, I wanna hear about your godly experiences. I mean, who do you
Mhm.
talk to? How do you talk to them? Mediums, all of that. The whole thing, it just thrills me.
Yeah, it's a beautiful world because once you open up to spirituality and the possibility of life beyond life, you lose the fear of death. And once you lose the fear of death, it's, at least in my experience, that is such a freeing feeling. You realize that
Mhm,
we're just here for a little bit of time. And then we're not just this body, we are a spiritual being having a human experience. The way that my spirit guide explained it to me is that our body, life is like a car ride. And I was like, what do you mean a car ride? They said, when you are born, you get into your vehicle, which is your body. And then you're driving. Some people have longer journeys to drive than others. Some people may take the wrong turn and be in a bumpy road, but they'll get back where they need to be, and so on and so forth. But when you get to your destination, what are you going to do? Are you just going to stay in your car? Or are you going to get out of the car and do whatever you need to do? And then he used that to
mhm.
explain to me the journey of life. And I was like, mind blown.
Yep,
That
yep.
is
It's
beautiful.
really crazy. Yeah, and
Hmm.
I just in the last couple days found out more about my spirit guides. So I am stepping up. I've got another step on my ladder, and I'm just so thrilled to know a little bit more about my guides. And it's
Hmm.
just like, oh, yes.
About time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. And another thing that I do, if I could bring that up right now, is I just gotten through my second level class for oracle card readings.
Hmm.
So I do oracle card readings now,
Beautiful.
so I do that
Absolutely.
now. But yeah, that I think that has actually helped open me
Mhm.
up
Mhm.
to have that connection.
Yeah.
It's
So,
awesome.
what sparked that interest in you of pursuing your spiritual gifts? Can you tell? I was reading a little bit about your story, but for the people in the audience, after your contact with the ETs, you somehow found someone that kind of introduced you to the spirituality side of things. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. I was working at this one particular job and it was break time. So I'm in the break room and I overheard our HR lady talking about going on a trip to California. And she was going to go to these haunted houses and all of this haunted tours. And I'm like, my ear goes, huh? And I'm like, oh. Tell me more. And so we started talking and all, and she goes, "Oh, you need to talk to Shane." I'm like, "Who's Shane? I haven't met him yet." And she pointed at him out, and I'm like, "Hey, Shane, I hear you're into all of this stuff." Come to find out, he is a psychic, and, he's like, "Yeah, let's talk." So we went outside for for lunch or so, and he started talking, and it's, "Yeah, I've had this and this happen." And that's what got me going, and now I'm just like, "Oh, I'm like this little squirrel running around. A squirrel? What? Squirrel? Huh? Oh, I'm in the spider web? Oh, I'm gonna go over here, 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 here." I'm just, like, flying everywhere. I'm just, like, so disorganized because I just, like every little thing is just like, "Wow, wow, wow, wow." And, after this class that I took, I feel more narrowed in on what I want to do. Ever since I talked to Shane, I've always wanted to be a medium and a channeler, but I never even had any clue what they were. But that was my interest, and it's still my interest. So I'm hoping next year I'm going to be getting into some medium classes so I can start working on those skills and bringing that in and working more on the channeling and all. So, yes, I have to thank Shane for it. His name is Shane Smith, the Lightning Psychic. So he's the one that has gotten me into this, really gotten me into this.
Beautiful. And we're lucky that he did that and he helped you. He helped open your eyes to the spiritual side of things and make sense of previous experiences because now we have this day nine. She's doing amazing things in the world.
Right. And without him, I would still be in this old
Mhm.
world having these experiences. I'm like, what's going on? Now I
Mhm.
think I'm freaking out because now I'm hearing my name. Now I'm, you know.
Exactly. And can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know that, in my opinion, hearing your name being called and when nobody's there, that's a sign to me of spirit trying to get your attention. People may think, oh my goodness, I'm hearing voices in my head. I'm going crazy. Let me go to the doctor real quick. I need a pill, this, that, and the other. What can you tell to people going through that right now?
Listen to it. Ask it questions. I'm still trying to get into that myself when I hear those voices, is to ask them questions. Who are you? What is the need? What do you need from me? Is there something you want to tell me? What is your message? Ask them questions.
Absolutely. Use discernment too. Just because you
Correct.
hear a voice and you think this is your spirit guide doesn't mean that you just trust and do everything they say.
I have learned all that myself. I wake up in the morning and I do my boundaries. I cover myself with light. I ask my angels for my light to be with me and to keep all the negative out. And so I also do that mantra at night.
Mhm.
I am protecting myself in the mornings and then protecting myself at night. And I feel very safe with what is coming through at this point. But I do recommend that use your intuition. If it doesn't feel right, you tell it to leave. You need to leave. This is not the space for you. Yeah.
Send it to the light with love and
Send
light.
it. Yep. Send it. Yep. Yep. Or I had one that came through and it was a raspy voice saying, "Help me." And even though it was saying, "Help me," I still had that feeling of, no, this isn't right. So I go, "You need to leave and you need to leave now." And
Mhm.
next thing I had my eyes closed and I was seeing all these bright lights within the darkness of my eyes being closed. And those are my angels, those are my
Mhm.
protectors, and they were coming in and protecting me from that energy. I haven't felt it since. They'll be there. Your guides and angels will be there. Ask for their help and they'll be there.
That's very important to ask for
Mhm.
help because we have free will and we can be drowning. We can be going crazy, but if we don't ask for help, They're not going to interfere unless there's something life threatening to us and it's not our time to leave. But they will not stick their hand in your business if you don't ask them to.
And I agree, and I don't know if we have time for this, but I do have a story about that too with me. A spirit taking over my steering wheel to protect me, and that was a time when I was going to work, and I was in the straight lane at a stoplight, and I started hearing this voice saying, "Get gas." And I had a half tank, I had plenty enough to get it and wait until after work and all. And I was like, "No, I'm gonna get gas later." And they're like, "Get gas." And they just kept repeating that, and I kept arguing, "No, I don't need to get gas, I'll get it after work." And next thing I know, my steering wheel is turning, and my gas was pushed, and my car was getting into the turning lane so I could turn to get gas. And I'm like, "Okay, I guess I'm getting gas." So I went over and I got some gas, not freaking out over it, which is weird, but I wasn't freaking out. I was just saying, "Okay, I'm going to get gas." And getting the gas, it was like a sub-zero morning. It was freezing out, and the gas was, like, coming out of the pump very slowly, and I kept looking at my watch, and I'm just like, "Okay, I'm gonna be late for work. Come on, gas. Come on. Let's get moving here." It finally ended. I went back, and I started off to work again, and it's kinda hard to explain, but my right next to the building I work at, there was a little dry creek and a little bridge that went over that, and then my building was there. I get to that intersection, just about ready to go across the little bridge there, and sure enough, there was an accident, and they were had someone on a stretcher. I don't know if that couldn't recall if that person was covered, like the sheet over him, or if they were just going to the hospital, but they had stopped me. Had they not have stopped me, I would have been in the midst of that,
Wow.
and I ended up being 10 minutes late because I had to go another 5 miles or so around my work to get there, but at least I got there. It's like, that is why I'm late. So that is one time where they told me, "No, you will not be going just straight to work. You will be getting gas." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay." So
'Cause
yeah, thank you.
otherwise your life would have been in danger. And that's exactly what we were mentioning earlier, that they will not interfere if you don't ask unless they have to save you.
And that was
Yeah.
one of those times.
Yeah. And I can remember myself a couple of times where I was driving and then all of a sudden I heard a voice saying, go to the next lane. And it was the type of voices that you don't even think about it, you just do it. And then you're like, wait, why did I do that? So that happened to me in many different times. And come to find out that if had I not followed that voice, I would have gotten into a car wreck. It happened to me many, many times. And I didn't ask for it, but I guess I was not destined to have that car wreck for whatever reason. And I appreciate, thank you, God. But yes, it's very important to use discernment and know when you need to listen. And even if you don't listen, if you are not meant to do something, they'll stop you. Hence your situation with the gas. And they were like, well, you don't want to listen to us? Fine, we'll drive. And they literally drove you to the gas station.
Yes, they did at least got me in the turning lane until I said, "Okay, we're going."
I guess I don't have a
They
say in this.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It was a very strange feeling. You just do it. But then when it's all over with, you're like, "What just
Why did I do
happened?"
that? Hmm.
I heard those voices. I know I heard those voices telling me. I know it wasn't me. I know I sat there and argued with them, but my car just on its own went into the other lane. It's just a weird feel when you
Yes,
look
it's quiet.
back on it.
Yeah, and you start
Very
fact checking, like, oh, so this. At that time, I was not aware of any of this, and then as I started, being more aware, spiritually speaking, I was like, "Oh, so this thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
Yeah.
help."
Yes. Exactly. And when you listen to them, it's amazing because I had another experience where I argued them.
Mhm,
And I was in church and we're sitting there waiting for everything to start. And I kept hearing this voice saying, hug her. And there's this lady over by in front of us that was on the aisle and sitting by herself. And but I didn't know her. And I'm like, I don't know her. They're like, hug her. I'm like, I'm not gonna just go up to somebody and just hug them. I don't even know her. Hug her. It's like, no. Okay. So I did. I went over and gave her a hug from behind, and she looked back at me and says, I needed that. Thank you so much. I really needed that. So, yeah, just listening to your intuition, listening to that voice, unless it's saying otherwise. You know?
exact
But yeah, those little things I've really learned to listen to that because these people need that, like that hug.
mhm, yeah,
I didn't know that. I would have no idea that she needed that hug, but spirit
exactly,
did. And they told me, and they weren't gonna give up until I did, just like with the car.
exactly, and I have a similar story about that. I go to the spiritualist chapel, I'm a spiritualist. So, for those of you in the audience who don't know, the spiritualist chapel, we follow the spiritualities, the laws of the universe, and we integrate this spirituality lifestyle and they help you develop your gifts. So, a couple of weeks ago, I was there and there is a section of the service in which we do meditations and then the healers stand up, form a circle around everybody else in the middle. And I'm one of the healers. There was a lady coughing really bad and they said, "Put your hands over her shoulder." And I'm like, "No, I'm not going to, I don't know her. I'm not going to do that." Put your hands on her shoulders. No, I don't want to be weird. Put your hands on her shoulders. And I was like, I don't want to, I was looking for every single excuse not to touch that person, not because I felt some type of way. I just don't like invading people's personal space. They dropped the topic and we kept doing the healing. There was like 5 other healers there too. So at the end, when we were talking about the meditation and sharing the experiences, another healer said that he was told to go and put his hands on that same lady's shoulder. And I was like, oh man, now you had to find someone to do my job because I didn't want to do it. So
Oh.
during all this time, I thought I was making that up. That was the big problem there. I thought I was making it up and I was being weird. But in reality, it was spirit telling me, go do this. So sometimes it's been my experience that when spirit communicates with you, they communicate with me via thought forms. And the thought forms that they give me, the downloads, sound very similar to my own internal voice. So to me, I was like, oh, lady, you're making that up. That's weird. Don't do that. And then I was like, oh man, somebody had to do my job because I was too lazy to do it. So, yeah, we have to learn how to and I'm still working on that. We have to learn how to differentiate too when we're making things up and when we're not, because they know better. And I guess I have a lot work to do on
Right.
that.
Yeah, I've noticed when I think when you're when you sit there and just kinda think to yourself and it is you talking, I find that conversation, that voice is more at my forehead, more towards my forehead area. But when I'm hearing the other voices, it's more towards the back of my head.
Hmm. Yes.
That is a sense of areas that I've recognized when I hear things.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to have to implement that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's just what I've narrowed down,
Hmm.
is
Yeah.
where in the head is that voice coming from? And that tells me where it is, who it is,
For
or
sure.
if it's
Yes.
spirit or
That was
me.
a great tip. Yeah, well, that was a great tip. I never thought of it that way, but now that you mention it, it does make sense. Because when I hear that voice in my head, it's like towards the back of my right ear. I don't know if for you it's right or left, but in this side. So thank you for that. I'm sure that the audience would appreciate it. Now, Dana, you've had many experiences. You had your ET contact. You've been awakening spiritually speaking, developing your gifts. What advice could you give people that maybe they have had ET contacts, but they're afraid of coming out, so to speak, of the spiritual closet and tell their family and friends? They fear their reactions. What advice would you give them?
I think just telling your story is very helpful for you to understand, because one day you're gonna run into somebody that's gonna say, "I get that. I've been there," or, "I know someone that you can talk to about this." So, to me, you can't be afraid. If they don't like it and if they're gonna be mean to you about it, then that's just a person you gotta step away from and just try another person, because that person will be there for you, and they will help you find someone or help you through it.
Thank you for that message. I also do believe that we have to trust in ourselves and not be afraid of what other people may think about our experiences. Because chances are, if you're questioning if you're going crazy, chances are you're not going crazy. Now, I also wanted to ask you about, well, before we go there, you were this particular person before all this started, your experiences. The Dana today, looking back at the Dana from years ago, what difference do you see in yourself nowadays?
I think before I was more of a person that would just go along with the crowd, just kind I'm just floating around. Now I'm taking more direct directions, if that makes sense. I am more purposeful about what I'm doing. And right now is I'll tell the world what I do. I will tell the world my stories. You can believe me or you don't. I don't care anymore. You believe what you wanna believe. This is my story, and I'm gonna stick with it because it's my truth. And even though you have not experienced it, doesn't mean that it didn't happen.
That's great. Very important. Dana, you have a podcast. You have a YouTube channel. You are doing oracle card reading. Can you tell us a little bit more about your projects and where can we send people to find you?
I am I'm working on different ones now. Let me see if I can remember them. I'm on X now. I am on Trumble. I am on Instagram, and I'm missing one, but, I'm on several platforms now, and I am always looking for guests to be sharing their stories as I have just done. I am always looking for people to read cards with and to read pictures. I love to read pictures of someone that has passed, and I'm just having so much fun with all of that. So, and you can find how to contact me at lighttalk423@gmail.com and contact me there, and we'll get you connected with the show. We'll get you connected with a card read, a picture read. We'll get you connected.
Before we go, Dana, do you have any last words for the audience?
I say trust your instincts, enjoy the ride, and believe in yourself and what you do. Because if you don't, you're not going to enjoy all this magic that is happening around us every day. Enjoy it. Ask questions, talk to people. They'll help you through it.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dana, for that message. And thank you so much for coming on this show. It was truly an honor to have you on today.
Thank you so much for having me.